Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The topic for today is how Shiva destroys the ego. It's a story. In timeless existence, Lord Shiva sat in deep meditation. Suddenly, a shadowy figure appeared. The ego, the ahankara, which always wanted to assert itself. Shiva opened his eyes. The ego said, "Don't you know who I am? I am self-made." Shiva, calm and composed, said, "Namaste. You're just an appearance that seems to bind the Atma. You are transient aspect of my cosmic dance." The ego scoffed. "Transient? I am eternal. I am the driving force that moves people forward. I am the center of the universe. Without me, people would be lost. People would have no purpose, no identity. Nobody can destroy me." Shiva smiled and said, "You mistake identity for eternity. Your influence may be strong, but it is just like a veil, an avarana, a bond of ignorance that covers your true nature." And Shiva continued saying, "Don't worry, I don't want to destroy you, but to guide beings to see that they impose limitations on themselves." The ego mockingly said, "Guide them? You're probably talking about weak-minded people who need you. I am very strong and independent." Shiva nodded and said, "You, as the ego, the ahankara, provide a false sense of strength, but it is a strength that is built on shaky foundation of changes. True strength lies in understanding the interconnectedness of all things. True strength lies in knowing yourself as changeless amidst all the changes." The ego got a bit defiant. "And so, Shiva, how do you plan to achieve that? I am the very core of the human being." Shiva closed his eyes. He said, "Through my Tandava, the cosmic dance that harmonizes creation and dissolution, it will reveal the impermanence of all things." So the ego started to laugh. "Destruction? You think you can dismantle me with a dance?" Shiva opens his eyes and says, "The Tandava is not about destruction, but transformation. My dance will help you see that all things must end to make way for the new. Whether it is a song, an event, a book, a conversation, a movie, a relationship, a job, a career, a vacation, any moment and any experience will begin and end. You are holding on to what is changing for your sense of identity. Drop it." The ego said, "What do you mean drop it? I've worked very hard to be who I am. What should I drop?" Shiva said, "Let me explain. You as the ahankara are important, but even you, the ego ahankara, is a role. It is not real. Aham karoti iti ahankaraha. I do, therefore I am. Your identity comes from what you do and experience. And if you really understand yourself as the Atma, then you are home free." So there are 4 stages of transformation for the ahankara or the ego. The first stage is karma happens to the ego. The ego believes that everything good, bad, and ugly is happening to it. It's like the ego against the entire world. And the ego struggles with, why me? Why did I get diabetes? Why are my parents so unsupportive? Why is my boss such a dot dot dot? Why did he or she reject me? The ego goes through a roller coaster of emotions and realizes that this way of thinking, like a victim, is not working. And so the ego starts to claim the strength that it has, and one moves to the second stage of transformation. The second stage of transformation for the ego or ahankara is karma happens by me, the ego. So now the ego starts to take responsibility for different areas of life. It becomes a lot more goal oriented and one gets the results one wants. Often, many of the expectations are not met, and the ego starts to believe that one calls all the shots until reality bites. So, despite your best efforts, things don't work out. The job, the relationship, the career, the health, everything goes for a toss. So, as ego, you blame yourself or the people around you. And as you start to inquire into why things are not working out for you and perhaps your family, you come across the law of karma, which brings us to the third stage of transformation for the ahankara or the ego, which is karma happens through the ego. You recognize me, Bhagwan, as the law of karma. The ego starts to see me as the karmadhyakshaha, the presiding over karma, and karma phaladata, the giver of the results of karma. So you see how you, the ego, and I, Shiva, are deeply connected. The ego now becomes a devotee, and the ego starts doing its very best in all its roles, aligns with dharma, becomes very competent and accepting. The hard exterior of the ego softens. The ego realizes that everything is given. What it was claiming as I, me, myself is all pervaded by Bhagavan. Now, the ahankara or the ego is willing to be an instrument of Bhagavan. And so Shiva continues saying, through my Tandava, the ego starts to see the cosmic dance of dharma. The ego participates in this dance by doing what needs to be done. And then is the fourth stage, or rather the final stage, where the ego or the ahankara realizes that all along it was a karta, never the doer. Sure, karma still happens through the ahankara, but now it is a functional role, just like a uniform for the atma. And so as the aham, the ahankara, witnesses my tandava, the I sees its true nature, which is I am always the witness of changing roles. As Shiva, I am unchanging and am complete stillness and formlessness. Yet all forms, all movement, all changes come from me. And yet I am untouched by all of them. So the I that you had mistaken to be the ego is really the witness of all changes, is the witness of changing responsibilities, the witness of the changing body and mind. The witness is consciousness itself, the changeless, and the basis of all changes. This witness is not an action that you perform. In its presence, everything gets illumined. So, really speaking, the witness is fullness, ananda. Hearing this, the ego hesitantly asks, but won't all of this lead to detachment? Then, how am I going to relate to the others? So, Shiva compassionately says, detachment is not about abandoning responsibilities or relationships. If you are so hung up on detachment, well, true detachment is from the idea that you are this much only, limited and bound. You detach from the thought that you are affected by changes. The body mind is affected, it will continue to be affected, but what you truly are remains unaffected. You are much more than the body and mind. So, you as the Atma consciousness is in and through even the ego, in and through all the relationships, all the moments, all the experiences. Then Shiva further says, this cosmic dance, which is presided by me, is a dance where every being plays a unique role. The ego becomes a bit contemplative and asks, can one really know this and be free? Shiva nods and says, yes, the journey can be challenging for the ego, yet this journey of transformation has been performed by many rishis and gurus, and it can easily be done by systematic learning with a guru. So Shiva continues saying, this witness consciousness is fullness, is Ananda, it is you. And my Tandava signifies this eternal rhythm of creation and dissolution. I am that Ananda, and so are you. Anando Brahmeti Vyajanat Anandadhyeva Khalvimani Bhutani Jayante Anandena Jatani Jivanti Anandam Prayantyabhisam Vishantiti Saisha Bhargavi Varuni Vidya Parame Vyoman Pratisthita Saya Evam Veda Pratitishthati. So just what I revealed in the Taittiriya Upanishad in this dialogue between Bhrigu and Varuna, from Ananda alone, that is you, that is me, all the things and beings are born. Because of Ananda alone, all the beings exist. And it is that Ananda into which all beings and all their movements and all their experiences will resolve. This was the Vidya given by Bhrigu to Varuna. So Shiva continued to explain the intricacies of the Tandava. The ego listened intently. Its once booming voice now softened by the echoes of this wisdom. The Ananda Tandava unfolded, now not as a force of destruction, but as a journey of transformation through the stages that we saw. So from stage 1, where karma happens to the ego, to stage 2, karma happens by the ego, to stage 3, karma happens through the ego as one becomes an instrument. And finally, stage 4, I am untouched by karma as it happens through me. I was always the akarta, never the doer. Thus, the ever-flowing dialogue between Shiva and the ego Ahankara echoed through the cosmos, inviting all other egos, all other Ahankaras to participate in the dance of self-discovery and liberation. Om Tat Sat.